Thanks for joining us. It is another episode of Breaking Nashville. As always, we are on Twitter. It's at Breaking Nash. Our website, breakingnashvillepodcast.com. I am John Watkins, and this week I'm excited because this man, I would say you're world famous.
Oh, thanks, man.
Nathan Osmond.
Hey, it's good to be with you, John.
So
I love this podcast.
Thank you, man. I appreciate
Breaking
that.
Nashville.
Yeah, you know, the idea is just to meet artists and understand what it takes to get signed, because you and I have known each other for years,
Yeah.
and I've watched you try again to get singles on the radio. And did you realize how hard it is to get played?
You know what? I grew up in the business and knew that it was tough.
Yeah.
My father kept trying to talk me out of it. Now I kind of understand why a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing is when you have passion for something, you don't take no for an answer. And so, N-O, those are my initials. When people tell me no, I'm dyslexic. It looks like on.
I love
bring it on, baby. They're just cheering me on. So I didn't tell any of my family that I was going out to Nashville to pursue this dream because, first of all, I didn't want to be talked out of it.
Yeah.
I think anyone listening to this podcast is probably related to somebody who just loves them so much they don't want to see him get hurt.
Yeah.
You ever had that talk?
Oh, completely. Look, we're all in showbiz in some way, and people want us to be a doctor or a lawyer or something where you know you're going to get a paycheck.
Well, see, my father was in the entertainment business, sold over 100 million records. Why in the heck would he try and talk me out of it?
Yeah.
So I didn't want to have that conversation, so I just went and did it. I worked with the guys Lone Star at Stadium of Fire, and I learned that you got to tell people what you want in life. Otherwise, how can you help them or how can they help you?
Yeah.
So I struck up a conversation with Dean Sams, who's the keyboard player and founding member of that group, and I said, man, I've written some songs with, Brian McNice produced some of my stuff. I've written, a lot of different songs, but my dream is to write a song with you guys. You don't put out anything bad. You're one of my favorite groups. He says, well, here's my email. Why don't you come out to Nashville and we'll write sometime? And I thought, is it that easy? I got Richie McDonald's email that night on a napkin, and I thought to myself, well, they're not going to call me. Create the opportunity. So I used strategy, and I said, okay, they're probably going to be off the road in December, not too close to Christmas, but close enough that they're off the road. So I used some strategy, and I said, Dean, I'm coming out between this date and this date. I'd love to take you up on your offer to write. It's just fantastic. Come on out, and we'll make it happen. So
did you book the flight before?
I booked the flight. Yeah, I booked the flight, and then I got my hotel, and because I figured he's going to be true to his word.
Yeah.
And I'm going out there ready to write with Dean, but the thing is I only had his email address, didn't have a phone number or anything. So I write to him a few days before I go out, and I said, hey, Dean, what's your phone number so I can contact you when I get out there? Nothing. Silence on the internet. Okay, it's like the day before. I sent out another one. Said, I don't have a laptop. There's no way of reaching you except for email. Do you have a studio number or something? Nothing. So I'm going out to Nashville with no way of even talking to these guys, and I just go on blind faith. So you got to network in this business. Yeah. I called everyone and their dog I could think of that might have a number on them. My drummer, who worked with Jody Messina for a while, he says, I think I got their tour manager's number. I said, they'll have to work. I call him up. His name is Coach, we called him.
Yeah.
Coach, it was great to work with you guys at Stadium of Fire this year. I'm supposed to be out here writing with Dean Sams. I know he's got a new studio. Just had to try and prove I knew the guy. Do you even have a studio number on him? All I've got is his personal cell phone number. Perfect.
Done.
Ask for what you want in life. So I had to ask for it. He gave it to me, surprisingly. I called Dean up. I'm in Nashville now. In the next room is Miranda Lambert before she made it big. She's working on her stuff. And I got to meet her. But the thing is Dean said, I thought I gave you my number. No, I got it from Coach. He said, let me call you back in 10. Well, guess who doesn't call me back in 10? Or an hour, or 2 hours, or 4 hours goes by. I start turning into Charlie Brown. Thinking that, he probably thinks I'm a fan. I'm just in his backyard now with his cell phone. And I said, cut it out. Be careful what you tell yourself. I said, regardless of if he calls me back, I'm going to go get turned on by Nashville.
Yeah.
And I decided to make the most of this trip, regardless of what happens. So I went out with my little tape recorder, started interviewing cowboys on the street there on Broadway, and started going to all those live honky-tonks, Legends Corner, and Tootsie's, and tell me about the Ryman Auditorium. I got turned on by this town. Finally, I'm down at the very end of Broadway by the Crazy Horse Saloon.
Yeah.
And right then, Wild Horse Saloon. Anyway, my phone goes off about 10:30 that night. It's Dean Sams from Lone Star. He says, Nathan, I'm an idiot. I totally forgot to call you back. What are you doing right now? And I said, I'm in my car right now driving to your house. How the heck do I get there? And he just laughed. He says, dude, I love your tenacity. I said, I'm most creative at 2 in the morning. Come on over. Without a GPS, it's a miracle in and of itself. I made it to his house. I go in there. He's got a great piano sitting there, and another songwriter sitting by him. He says, all right, show us what you got. In other words, prove yourself.
Yeah.
I pulled out some snippets of my very best songs I've ever written and just played little bits of them. He says, you wrote that? I said, yeah. He says, play another one. And I did. Play another one. I did. Finally cuts me off. He says, Nathan, 3 things. First of all, I hate you. And I was a little nervous when he said that. He says, because I'm a keyboard player and you make that look easy. 2, you have so much to give to Nashville. Why aren't you out here? And 3, guess who's coming to my house tomorrow at 9 o'clock to write? You are. And I was just celebrating inside. What I thought inside, I said, okay, play up on the ego a little bit. I said, all right, do you have a starter? Let's work on one of your songs. So I recorded a little melody, recorded it. The next day, I spent the entire day working on this song. I brought it all written to his studio the next night.
Wow.
I said, I just kind of threw this together. I spent the whole day on it,
right.
man. He says, you wrote that? I said, yeah, I just kind of threw it together. He says, oh, man, I love it. We tweaked it a little bit, because he had to have his name on the credits. We made it better. I recorded it. I went home that night with tears streaming down. I said, I did it. I wrote a demo with Lone Star. And they loved it so much. They wanted to pitch it to Rascal Flatts, but their album was in the can. And then a few days later, he says, I love this song so much, I want Lone Star to record it. The very first song I write in Nashville. This isn't typical, by the way.
This is still just, a day and a half in Nashville, and you've got Lone Star going.
Tying up my song. So, but the story continues, Paul Harvey, because I get this. The rest of the story is he calls me up the next day, a few days later. He says, you won't believe this. After 14 years as our lead singer, Richie McDonald just emailed the band saying that he's going solo. He didn't even call us. He emailed us. It really rubbed them wrong, and they were really upset about the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was there during all that, and I was thinking, okay, I could let this just fly out the window, this great big opportunity, but I was just being cheap. And I said, heck, we just cut a demo. And I said, Dean, it's always been my dream to have my own country album, And he says, well, come to my house. We'll do it right. I said, I'll take you up on that. And I did, and that's how I first got my foot in the door out there in Nashville. And it took a while. We went and did 4 songs. I came back. And then I got to record in Muscle Shoals with Gary Baker, who was my Aunt Marie's bass player. We did the rest of the album down there, and but it took 2 years just to get the album just the way I wanted it. And then becomes the time to shop it. Then you got to start knocking doors on Music Row. They don't care that you're an Osmond. Sometimes that makes it harder. When you have a name people recognize, they prejudge your stuff. It was hard too. At the same time, I had to work other jobs just to be able to get to that point in my life. I was doing 155 conferences as a financial conference MC. I was doing, seminars all across the country. I was the face of the company up there. Are they going to let me off to go pursue my dream? Heck no. So I had to come up and get creative. How am I going to get out to record with Dean? So I said, my brother David is getting married, and I need a week off. You need a week off for a wedding? I said, you know how many Osmonds there are? You know how long that reception line is? They started laughing, so they gave me a week off. They didn't know that I was stopping through Nashville on my way back to Utah, and that's where I made that first step happen.
Wow.
You got to get creative. And one of the best secrets of success is to not tell everybody everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Surprise them, And once you start having success and some big things start happening for you, then they're going to start asking you questions. See, I always thought there's always 2 types of people in the world: those who talk about what they want to do, and those who are out just making it happen.
Yeah.
And I think I really gained my family's respect by doing that. Donnie and Marie were both blown away that I was able to go out and do that without asking for favors or, hey, will you open the door for me here? Will you throw me a bone? No. Go out. That's how they made it. I mean, my father and uncles, the Osmonds, a lot of people don't know this story, they actually bought a map of where the stars live in Hollywood. They went down there not knowing a soul. But they started you get arrested nowadays doing this, but you knocked on the doors of all these celebrities. They went to the house where the Lennon sisters, who were on the Welk show. Yeah. They knocked on their door and said, hey, these are the Osmond brothers. They want to sing a song. They came in, sang back and forth. And anyway, they thought, you guys got to meet our boss, Lawrence Welk. Well, without even a meeting, they go down there and try and line it up. He's in the next room, and for whatever reason, doesn't even come out and shake their hands. They're heartbroken. So my grandmother, Olive, she says, George, let's take the boys to Disneyland, and then we'll go back and live normal lives in Utah. Well, the thing is they were still in their costumes, and they go to Disneyland, and they look like a group. Well, the Dapper Dans who sing Barbershop Harmony come riding down on their bicycles, and they notice this group. And they said, you guys look like a group. He says, well, we are. Well, sing us a song. People thought it was part of the whole Disneyland magic because it drew a crowd. Wow. And they said, you guys got to meet our boss, who just happened to be Andy Williams' father, who says, Andy, you got to get these boys on your show, which is how they even God works in mysterious ways, I've learned. But the thing is that sometimes we're sitting here, oh, please open the door for me. Please make this happen. Oh, beggars' prayers. And what I think God is doing sometimes is sitting there saying, give me something to bless. Just go move your feet, and I will open the doors for you. So